Hello, everybody. It is Tuesday. It is, well, I don't know. Would it be a drive time show if you were in lockdown? My name is Tom Hutchinson. We're going to kick off with a little bit of music. So, there we go. Nice. Right. As I say, it is Tuesday. It is lockdown. I hope you're all keeping safe and I hope you're all keeping socially distant. This is Noel Gallagher's High Flying Birds, and this is Black Star Dancing. I'm actually here today to discuss a topic about lockdown which has divided quite a few people. Now, the difference between this lockdown and the previous lockdown is that the schools and places of education are remaining open. Now, it has divided quite a few people. So I've got a couple of guests on today. I'd like to introduce you to Caroline Killick, who is from Redbridge for Education. And I also have Venda Prikumar, hope I said that right, from the National Education Union. It's such an unprecedented time at the moment of how things are going and how people are sort of transitioning into different roles. We'd love to get your opinions on whether you are for or against schools being closed during lockdown, and even just share some of your experiences. How have you found your first day in lockdown? How did you find the previous lockdown with regards to sort of education? Did your children notice anything different? As I've always said, sort of on our Tuesday shows, I feel like that the coronavirus has created somewhat of a ripple effect with regards to how things are done. I think our government at the moment is kind of more looking at short-term goals and not so much looking at the long-term goals. Caroline, how have you sort of found it from like a parent's side, of like with regards to say like the first lockdown where a lot of classes were being done via Zoom and things like that? Have children sort of just accepted this now as kind of like quote unquote the new normal, or are they missing that sort of structure of when they're going into a class, getting to see their friends without having to social distance? Are they sort of how are they coping with the change, and how are the parents coping with the change as well? I mean, I do hope that we can get this done, and hopefully, if our words have actually inspired anybody, please speak to your local councillor, your local MPs. Make a noise, make a fuss. This is why we live in a democratic country. This is what we are allowed to do. This is the reason why we fought for things back in World War I, World War II. Otherwise, we wouldn't have the right to vote. And I'm going off on a really weird tangent now because you can tell it's getting to the end of the show. I'm going to start doing Winston Churchill. You watch, but right,
go for it.
we should go to schools on the beaches, and this actually sounds like Boris Johnson, doesn't it? So, a female racing pigeon from Belgium called New Kim has been sold for a record £1.4 million to a mystery Chinese buyer at an online auction. Now, I just want to point it out for a second. A mystery Chinese buyer. Imagine when the guy gets home at the end of his day and goes, "Oh, how was your day, darling? Do you want to say, yeah, sure. Why have we got £1.4 million missing from the bank account? No reason. What was that? Nothing. Ben, I've just bought a racing pigeon. Great. How much did it cost you? Oh, 1.4 million quid. How much? We're going to play a game of higher or lower. So, cue the music.
This is Crystal Maze.
You Philistine. It's the Formula One theme.
Oh, is it?
I've got a couple of Formula One drivers here, and we're going to go on the most amount of points that they have amassed. Now, this is up to and including the Portuguese Grand Prix, which has just gone last Sunday, right? Michael Schumacher. Now, in his Grand Prix career, he had 1,566 points. But did Daniel Ricciardo scored more or less than 1,500? Final answer. You are correct. He scored 1,120 points.
He's the most successful driver of all time.
Let's go with Jenson Button. Speaking of Rainmasters,
I know that
so you know Jenson Button,
him, yeah.
The man who, let's be honest, one of the greatest.
Quite successful.
Yeah, former world champion with Brawn in a team which at one point didn't actually survive. It was basically Honda had gone bust, and Ross Brawn bought the team, and they won the race, won the championship. Sorry. So Daniel Ricciardo has scored so far 1,120 points in his F1 career, but has Jenson Button scored more or less?
Than Daniel Ricciardo.
Yeah. This song's actually
quite more,
isn't it? You're going to say more. You are right, sir. 1,235 points. Okay.
You're welcome.
Now, what's yourself? So you say you've been doing it for sort of the last month, and have you made any sort of headway? Like, have you reached out to any other organisations, or have you even sort of tried to get a notion set up in Parliament, say via a petition or anything like that at all?
Yeah, we've spoken to many different companies via Instagram and that sort of thing, smaller companies, working in tandem with them. in terms of the government, we've got a list. In fact, I've got it with me here, a whole list of politicians, both in the House of Commons and the House of Lords, either big mental health people like Ben Bradley and Theresa May.
About 5:16 p.m. on Saturday, the 23rd of November, 1963.
Oh, God.
Oh, yes. This song was played for the very first time.
Oh,
yes. You knew I was going there. Yep. Doctor Who is 57 years old yesterday, but we couldn't celebrate yesterday because, we weren't
on air.
Exactly. What I've decided is I thought we're going to have a little bit of a game of true or false. Okay. So the Doctor, as if people don't know, is a time traveler who wanders around in an old police box called a TARDIS. It looks like a police box because it's a cloaking device which has basically got stuck. And the idea of the show originally back in 1963 was it was supposed to be educational and entertaining, which is the BBC's remit.
It's not very educational now.
Well, in fairness, they did try to do it last year with Chris Chibnall, but just we don't talk about that series. That was terrible. So the idea was that 1 week it was going to be a future episode, which would be a story, and the week before that or the week after that would be a historical event. So you'd have things like the Romans, you'd have the Aztecs, and then eventually they realized that they were getting more views from the sci-fi episodes, and hence it's now the format that we now know and love today. I've got a list here of 10 monsters. Some of them are true and some of them are false. Now I need you, Mr. Scott.
Oh no, I know my Doctor Who.
Right, now this is going to be good then. We're going to test you, right? So I'm going to start you off with, sir, the Silurians. Now, the Silurians, are they...
Oh, they're real. They're real. I know they're real.
They are. They're correct. Yes, you are correct. They were first featured in Doctor Who and the Silurians in 1970, I believe. It was a John Pertwee story, also known as Homo Reptilia. I've got the new one. I mean, it's changed a bit, isn't it?
A little bit.
A bit more ethereal. Right, so the next one I have is the Omnitron. Now, is an Omnitron a Doctor Who monster or have I made it up?
False.
And you would be correct. I absolutely made it up. Their budget for the whole series, per episode, comes to £2,300 in today's money. But that's how much they had to basically pay the actors, do the set, make the TARDIS. Yeah, it was. I mean, like, put it this way: the TARDIS sound, that noise. Do you know what that is?
What?
That's actually keys on a piano wire just slowed down. That's all.
No way. See, I love the ingenuity of a couple of years ago.
The Nestines are the Nestines, which to me always sounds like a chocolate bar or like a chocolate confectionery manufacturer. Are the Nestines a Doctor Who monster, or have I made it up?
Do you know what? I'm going to go with true on this one. For the pure fact, it rings a bell.
And sir, you would be absolutely correct. They fought the amazing John Pertwee, the third Doctor, in a smoking jacket in 1970. It was actually
Come on, let's go.
And they came back as well for Christopher Eccleston's first episode of
Yes, that was it. That was it.
The shop window dummies. They're the Autons, but the Nestine is a big plastic blob that controls them. It's living plastic. The mighty Jagrafess of the Holy Hadrodrastic Maxaraphenfo. I promise.
That's true. Yeah, true.
That is true. Yes, that is absolutely true.
Because I can imagine a doctor saying that. That's just the thing.
Well, it was in an episode. It was in the first series. It was episode 7, and it was also it was basically a big gelatinous blob which was in the building, in the ceiling of this space station called Satellite 5, and it was actually installed. We find out later in the series. Spoiler alert from 15 years ago. That it was the Daleks who put it in there. But the best thing was because the mighty Jagrafess of the Holy Hadrodrastic Maxaraphenfo is a bit of a mouthful. Simon Pegg came up with a nickname and called it Max. So it's just a lot easier for everybody. So,
as you do,
brilliant, isn't it? But so that is the game. That is monster or made up. So there we go. I thought it'd be a little bit different. So
nice, man.
Yeah, and
I like that. That was good.
Yeah. Oh, good, isn't it? Well, that is the end of the show. So I'm going to put this back on one more time because why not? Thank you very much for tuning in.